Next, we're going to hear from David Evans, who has been on the front lines of the battles in the U.S. Over medical marijuana. And he's here to give a status report on this battle, and is one of the leaders in our field in many ways, but also, as you'll notice his description in the program, from drug-free schools, he's a leader in prevention also, particularly around the issue of random student drug testing, where David and I have worked together. He's a great leader in the medical marijuana area. David Evans.
It'll take us a minute to get the computer set up, but I appreciate Bob's comments about me being a leader, but right now I'm a leader who's losing the war. We are not winning on the medical marijuana front, and I'm going to talk about why that's the case. Basically, it's a matter of resources. The other side, the organizations that want to legalize marijuana and are using marijuana, medical marijuana, as a means of achieving that, far outweigh us in terms of financial resources. In the state of Michigan, for example, in 2008, they spent $8 million getting through a citizens' ballot initiative in Michigan. The most that we could raise was $300,000. So they had $8 million to spend on advertising, and this is basically what's been happening throughout the United States. If you're not from the United States, it's coming to your country soon. You have a lot not to look forward to. And if you're from the States, I hope we can keep it out of your state. How do I make this move forward? Which one do I push? Does anybody know which button I push to make it go forward? Okay. Okay, I'll just push that one. That's a lot easier for me. Okay. Now, how do these laws get created? First of all, we have a federal system in the United States. We have a federal government and we have a state government. The state governments largely get the right to decide their criminal laws. So what these laws do when they get passed is they just say that the medical use of marijuana is no longer criminal. It's still a violation of the federal law. The federal government can still prosecute. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. They've chosen not to at this point. These laws are made in two ways. There are ballot initiatives, and that's where enough citizens decide that they want this to be put on a ballot during an election, and the citizens in a general election just vote on it. Now, these ballot initiatives are situations where you don't sit down and talk to a legislator. It goes on a ballot when people come in and vote for a variety of other purposes. And in these ballot initiatives, money is what makes the deciding factor. Because the public votes on them, the public gets informed largely through advertising. And in Michigan, they spend $8 million on advertising, very seductive, very advertising that played on your emotions. And the only way to offset that would have been other advertising, and we just didn't simply have enough money. The other way, and that's how most of these laws have been passed in states in the United States, the other way they get through is by the legislature, the state equivalent of the parliament, voting on it. And there's been a couple of states where this has happened. Again, we have lost in some of these states because of just we were out-resourced. We've won in most states, though. We've kept it out of most states by vote of the legislature. Now, how do you decide whether or not somebody gets medical marijuana? Well, these laws have what I call gateway definitions that define the medical conditions that you have to get medical marijuana. And the proponents, the people in favor of legalizing marijuana, are very smart. They put in definitions that are full of loopholes, they're vague, they can have different interpretations, so what happens is the law gets passed, it then gets left up to an individual doctor to make a decision. For example, there's a bill in New York right now that you have to have a serious, debilitating condition in order to get marijuana. So the way this works is you'll go to a pot doctor, a marijuana doctor. You say, "Doc, I've got a backache." He says, "Oh, is it serious?" "Yeah, Doc, it's serious." "Are you debilitated in any way?" "Oh, yeah, I'm debilitated, Doc." "Okay, when you have a serious debilitating condition, I'm going to recommend marijuana for you." Most of these state laws allow you to have marijuana for pain, for nausea, or for spasm, all of which are very vague concepts and open to a lot of interpretation. An 18-year-old kid, for example, who gets hurt in a football game and has a back spasm, under these states could go and get marijuana for a year. In some states, be able to grow as many as 6 to 12 marijuana plants, which can generate thousands of joints, and be in high school and get all this done. No problem. I'm going to talk about the state of California from now on. This is the state where this is the worst example of medical marijuana. You obtain a recommendation from a medical doctor, and the doctor has to decide that marijuana may be helpful for your medical condition. Now, Dr. Madras, I think, outlined very carefully how there's very little medical evidence for even a small number of conditions, let alone all of the conditions that you can get marijuana for. So how is the doctor guided by this? Well, they really aren't. There really is no guidance. There's no information on cross-reactivity with other drugs. There's no information on how it may affect other illnesses you have. There's no dosage information. You know, when you go to a pharmacy and you get a prescription, the prescription says take so much per day, with meals, without meals, this time of day, don't drive, don't be out in the sun. We have none of that information for smoked marijuana. It doesn't exist. So the doctors are basically flying blind. You can also designate somebody as your caregiver who can also get one of these recommendations. And now both of you have the authority under the state of California to possess marijuana, to smoke marijuana, and to grow marijuana. So if your friend gets caught by the police and he's got marijuana on him, he can bring out his card, his recommendation card, and say, well, I'm this person's caregiver, and that's why I'm allowed to have marijuana. You get the marijuana either by growing your own or by going to a dispensary. This is the definition of caregiver under California law. You have to be a person that's assumed responsibility for someone. This actually had to be clarified by the California Supreme Court because all kinds of people were claiming to be caregivers, and the court said, no, no, no. You actually have to be responsible for this person, as if you're their parent, or if this person's seriously debilitated, you're actually the one providing them with care. It can't just be, you know, your best friend. So there was some clarification. Now, this doctor's recommendation, it is a recommendation. It is not a prescription. Normally, when a doctor gives you a medicine, he or she writes a prescription. And in this case, if a doctor writes a prescription under United States law, they are in violation of the federal law, and they can be kicked out of medical practice. So they don't write a prescription. They just talk with the patient and recommend that this person consider using marijuana. That person then goes to the government and gets a marijuana card, and that's how it's done. So it's not a prescription. Unlike a prescription, the patient keeps the recommendation with them so they can show it to the police if they need to. Unlike a prescription, though, there's no record keeping being done. We don't know in California, for example, how many people have been approved for marijuana. We don't know what doses they were approved for, what kind of marijuana, what conditions. There's a lot of lack of official record keeping. There was some information gathered by the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, that's the prosecutor's office, and that's information I'm going to share with you today. So we really have no idea what the heck is going on in California. We estimate there's anywhere from 100 to 300,000 people that have medical marijuana. The television show 60 Minutes did an expose on this and went to one of these pot doctors. There was somebody getting it for dry skin. A woman's, I'm not kidding you, this is on television. A woman's shoes were too tight, her high heels were too tight, and she had pain in her heel, and she got it. High school kids are getting it for restlessness, for insomnia, for anxiety. And high school kids in California are actually going to the schools demanding that they be able to use the marijuana on school grounds because it's medicine. And certainly it would stop me from using any other medicine. In the state of Montana, which is a medical marijuana state, a man was arrested for operating a drug lab. He was a marijuana smoker. After he got arrested, he went down to a marijuana doctor, got a marijuana recommendation. He was put on probation and he was told you can't use drugs while you're on probation. And particularly you can't smoke marijuana in front of your children. And you can't grow marijuana. The Montana law allows you to grow your own marijuana. Well, this guy said, no, this is a medicine. I'm a sick person. I have a backache. I'm entitled to marijuana. I'm entitled to grow marijuana and smoke it in front of my children. He took it up to the Montana Supreme Court. The Montana Supreme Court said, look, we don't like this, but it's medicine. So now we have a guy on probation who's a marijuana addict being allowed to smoke marijuana and grow marijuana when he was convicted of a drug felony. This is madness, absolute madness. Recommendations can also state how many plants you can have, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. So you get unlimited marijuana. You can go to one of these dispensaries, you can buy marijuana, you can go to a dispensary and get some marijuana, and go to the one next door and get more marijuana, smoke it up, go back later in the day and get more. We have situations where caregivers and the patients are going to the same dispensary at the same time to get marijuana. How much is the proper dosage on this? Well, some of the states do have laws that control the amount that you can have. New Jersey just passed a law, for example, where you can have up to 2 ounces. Now, 2 ounces sounds small, but that is anywhere from 100 to 300 joints that you can carry around with you at any one time. So if you smoke up an ounce, you can go back and get another ounce. The marijuana is not sold in places that look like pharmacies. You can get marijuana candy bars. You can get marijuana sauce. You can get pies, oils, creams, honey, peanut butter, all made with marijuana, and it's all medicine. This is an example of a typical marijuana recommendation. I know you can't read it very well, but in this case it says the patient uses marijuana topically, which means he puts it on his body, which greatly increases his need. It is recommended this patient be allowed to have up to 75 marijuana plants, growing up to 5 pounds of dry marijuana. Now that is a huge amount of marijuana. I think he probably fills up his bathtub with it and takes a bath in it. I don't know, but topically means he's putting on. So he's got 75 marijuana plants. That is hundreds of thousands of joints. Hundreds of thousands of joints. This is legal in California. Now these doctors, very few doctors are doing this. Reputable doctors do not appear to be doing this. We have a small number of doctors. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie characters Cheech and Chong. They had a series of movies that were very pro-marijuana comedies. And I often talk about people go to either Dr. Cheech or Dr. Chong to get their marijuana. So we have a small number of these pot doctors that are giving out these recommendations. They advertise, they use runners, people will go around and try to recruit patients for them. They give out flyers talking about, we've got this great marijuana, you can come and get it. It is really sleazy and unethical and non-professional, but it's legal. Some of them qualify patients online, and they give it out for every ailment. Anything that's wrong with you, you can get marijuana for. Premenstrual stress syndrome, attention deficit disorder, backache, schizophrenia, alcoholism, insomnia, restlessness. All of these things you can go and smoke as much as you want. We looked at some of the dispensaries in San Diego, and in the dispensaries, half of the recommendations came from 2 doctors. So this is not legitimate doctors across the board are doing this. The recommendations in California last for a year. So if you go in with an illness and the doctor gives you the marijuana and you are cured of that illness for some reason, let's say your heel pain goes away or your dry skin goes away, you can still continue to smoke pot for the rest of the year. No problem. And normally when you go to a pharmacy, you take medicine until the medicine has its effect. When it has its effect, you stop using it. And getting it renewed at the end of the year is very easy because it's very easy to get it in the first place. You got lots of medicine choices. This is a typical medical marijuana store. You can see they have a list, and you can select marijuana from one of these drawers. This is medical marijuana. These are all examples of medical marijuana from California. I like this one here. We have a very popular pastry called Tarts in the United States. They're very thin. You put them in your toaster. These are called Tarts. We have all looking like candy, Oreo cookies, medical marijuana, Stone Rancher. These are all modeled after candies in the United States. Here's some more. We got Baby Jane, Butterfinger. This one up here is a jar of medicinal peanut butter. So, you not only get well, you probably get fat in the process. Who is getting medical marijuana? Who are these dispensaries selling it to? The medical marijuana advocates paint this picture of these elderly people that need marijuana because they are in terrible pain and they're throwing up from their chemotherapy and so forth. Well, the majority of people getting medical marijuana are under the age of 30 years old. Hardly seriously ill, debilitated, very sick people undergoing chemotherapy. 72% of them are under the age of 40 years old. Very few are people my age in their 60s. And you only have to be 18 years old to get it. So this is a chart looking at the different ages. Starting here, that's people under 21. 12% are under the age. The largest block are 21 to 30, 40%, 31 to 40, 19%. You can see elderly people, I don't consider myself elderly yet, but just for purposes of argument, if you're over the age of 60, it's less than 4% over the age of 60 are getting it. So what they sell this on is not the reality. The reality is this is recreational use of marijuana. You can get it for anything that marijuana provides relief for, spasm, nausea, or in the New York bill, serious debilitating condition. If you look at the types of illnesses, the way these bills are sold to people is that this is going to help people with cancer who are having pain and chemotherapy, people with AIDS who are having trouble eating, so using medical marijuana stimulates their appetite, or glaucoma, it helps with glaucoma. Well, let's see if these people are really getting it. Again, this is from California. If you combine all of the cancer, all of the AIDS, all of the glaucoma people together, it's about 2%. So you're not getting what was advertised. This is a lie that's being put forth to the public. In Los Angeles and other cities in California now, a lot of cities in California are now banning getting rid of these medical marijuana dispensaries because they are magnets for crime. Los Angeles is trying to ban them right now. They had a 200% increase in robberies, burglaries, 57% increase in aggravated assaults, and so forth. They have more pot stores in Los Angeles than they do Starbucks, elementary schools, and so forth. And they're trying to close a lot of them down right now. Now, why are they winning this war? First of all, the public perception of marijuana is confused, and they've done a good job of confusing it. People lack conviction. There's a famous poem that says that the best lack all conviction, and the worst are full of a passion and intensity. And that's what's happening here. The best people are medical people who should be on this, are not on this. The medical societies, if this was any other drug, if a pharmaceutical company tried to get some drug through by a state ballot initiative, the medical societies would be all over it, but they're not all over it with marijuana. They have a confused mind about it. The other side, I'll make it in 2 minutes. The other side uses junk science. Dr. Madras talked about that. Studies that really aren't very good studies. They use compassion. They bring forth patients who start crying, and they talk about how they need marijuana. And the legislators override all their good sense and act on compassion. This is not the way to do medicine. There have been plenty of times where people have claimed that a medicine helped them when it wound up hurting them or hurting a large number of people. This is the way that we kill people, by not using science and using compassion. They have thousands of drug culture volunteers, potheads, who want to be able to smoke legally, who are working the legislatures on this, and they've got money, money, money. If we had 1/10 of the money that we had, we'd probably be beating them. Now, what is the future? The medical marijuana states are pushing back to some degree. They've banned dispensaries, they've gotten court cases. There can be prosecutions under federal law and state law, although the Obama administration has said that they're not going to prosecute unless it's also a violation of state law, and there can be local opposition to laws passing. And that's where you come in. You now know more about medical marijuana than 99% of the legislators who've passed these laws. And I hope you will resist it. If you want more information, I'll send you a whole kit via email. That's my email address, drugfreesc@aol.com. Also, our booklet on the facts about medical marijuana will be published as part of these proceedings. Thank you.